Hey there, I'm Pete Townsend, and this is Money Never Sleeps. We look inside the minds of entrepreneurs and at the crossover of startups, enterprise, finance, technology, and life as we know it. This week, Alejandro Gutierrez jumped back in with me on the return from our summer hiatus, and as you all know, he is the driving force behind Solana Superteam Ireland. We get into how Alejandro is scaling the community across the island, but also zoom out to talk about the big themes shaping on-chain finance right now. Stablecoins moving mainstream with new regulation, and tokenized securities continuing to break through with Nasdaq and others stepping in. Along the way, I share some details on my own big announcement, kicking off Norio Ventures Fund I, an early-stage venture fund backing unstoppable founders building on-chain finance. We also look ahead to what's coming up, the Payments Innovation Roundtable in Dublin on September 17th focused on stablecoins, CryptoMondays Ireland in Belfast on September 22nd with our Building Our On-Chain Future event, and the still developing plans for episode 300 of Money Never Sleeps, a live recording with plenty of room for friends at a podcast studio in Dublin. If you're into the builders, the breakthroughs, and the road ahead for finance on chain, listen up. So let's get into it with Alejandro Gutierrez, all right here on Money Never Sleeps.
Money never sleeps, pal.
Alejandro, how you doing, pal?
Pete, good to be here again. How are you doing?
Good to be back. The summer hiatus is over in nearly mid-September now.
That's it's crazy, isn't it? How fast this year has gone.
I know.
Unbelievable.
It's been nuts, and I missed the creative part of making this podcast over the summer, and it's kind of all the momentum to get back. I was very excited this morning, bouncing around. I am on my second double espresso, so that explains a bit as to why I'm bouncing around a bit. All excited to be back here recording with you to kick things off for our fall season. Let's just call it that, right?
Yeah, no, it's pretty exciting as well. I think getting back into full swing of things and getting their routine back, kids back in school, I think it helps. It helps. And also, well, almost episode 300, Pete. So
yeah, this is 299. 300 is coming up. We're going to do something special for that. I'm just back and forth in the last couple of days from the guys at Head Stuff, who have a podcast studio that is big enough for a small audience. So we're going to do episode 300 with a live recording. Don't have the date set yet, but it will be coming up in the next couple of weeks. And we'll be inviting a few folks along to that. And we'll have a little celebration for episode 300. Hopefully some surprise guests, some old friends, some new friends. Obviously, Alejandro, it'd be great to have you there with us, right? Recording,
there,
given how many of these episodes you've done with me now. So very much looking forward to getting that one done. There is more to come on that. I will leave that for now, what we're going to do after episode 300, but there's more to come. Excited to be back doing this with you. I do have a couple of updates. Now, this is public information now that has been shared over the summer, but perhaps some of the listeners may not picked up on this by the fact that, we were on the summer hiatus, but at the end of June, after we had finished the last Techstars Web3 demo day in New York City, which went incredibly well, and we did the recording of that I shared as episode 298 back at the end of July. In the closing comments that I made that day, I said there is an Irish poet and stage performer that goes by the name of Bono, and he was on stage in 1989 at the Point Depot in Dublin at the end of the Lovetown tour, and he said, sometimes you just have to go away and dream it all up again, right? And I said that to the crowd. I said, every summer, Hugh and I get together, Hugh McGurr, investment principal and trusted investment partner that I've been working with for the last 4 years and friend. I said, we get together and figure out if we're going to do this all again. And what we decided was that we were going to take everything that we had built with the Techstars Web3 ecosystem over the last 4 years. We're going to make it available to all of the Techstars programs. And what that means is that Hugh and I will no longer be running an accelerator for Techstars. The Techstars Web3 accelerator is finished. We've done that 4 years. We invested in 38 companies, invested about $4 million in capital, and we built a great network and we built a great portfolio. And, I will continue to manage that. I'm staying close to Techstars. I am now a Techstars managing director alumnus. And so I'm helping with a couple of partnerships. I am doing some mentoring of founders that are coming into Techstars just now this week for the kickoff of the fall term. And I will be obviously continuing to help the founders that I've invested in over the last 4 years and doing my best to do that. That is the end of a chapter, but there's obviously a new one coming up as well.
That's pretty exciting, Pete. And look, if you ask me, I believe that's probably the right approach and continuation. Like we're seeing more and more now, every single industry is starting using the technology, which means that having probably chapter just dedicated to Web3, yeah, it's still impactful, but it's probably better just to spread this in every single different industry and every single potential application out there. So I believe these can have a bigger impact as well in the Techstars ecosystem.
Definitely. And Techstars having a vertical focused accelerator program is an anomaly for Techstars. Techstars is very much focused on startup communities and in-person communities. And there was a Techstars Cloud program back in 2012, I believe, and they ran that once or twice. But then you don't need a specific Techstars Cloud technology program because everyone's just building on cloud, right? So we took that same type of call with Techstars Web3 and the mentor group, which you were famously part of, and as an all-star mentor, Alejandro, and thank you for that. And thank you to all of our mentors over the last few years. And that we still have a great community there. And I'm staying in touch with everybody. We also have a community of founders and investors that we're continuing to manage that community and keep people updated on what's going on. So still lots going on. And that whole network is such a fantastic network for the next thing that I'm going to be doing. But before we get into that, Alejandro, you've done quite a bit over the summer with Solana Superteam Ireland. Tell me how that unfolded.
You know, it's hilarious because I was chatting to some other leads from the super teams around the world and say, okay, this is the time to recharge batteries. And I think for us was not the case whatsoever. Yeah. We kept pounding and pounding, and there was so much that happened just to cement that foundation for Superteam Ireland. We were extremely busy. Like numbers were keep growing and growing. We had our investors dinner. So this is the first time ever it happens in the Irish ecosystem, just getting together Web3 projects with traditional investors. And it was fantastic just to see how interested people are in the space right now. And we tried to do this, Pete, together a few times. I tried to do it probably 2 times. It never actually, or we never succeed on it. And seeing it now, it was extremely exciting. But also it was in August, actually.
That was amazing. Pulling people together in the middle of August. And, I think it's the approach that you're taking, Alejandro, in that trying to build bridges and connect the dots here and being able to show people that, listen, building on Solana is something that doesn't just need to be focused on crypto natives. And that if you are a tech founder, these things aren't that complicated to understand. And that there is a benefit and advantage to building on chain. And you may not actually have thought about that before, but have a look. The feeling that I get is that with Solana Superteam here in Ireland, that you've got the resources and the people to help to bring people on board.
That's a big difference, to be honest, Pete, because we knew there's talent here. We know that. We have tech talent, we have fintech talent. So just doing that transition, it shouldn't be that difficult. But the fact is, we never had real support on the ground that didn't really exist before. And that's the reason why we're seeing the growth in Superteam Ireland, because you have people that are dedicated just to nurture the ecosystem, nurture talent, scout companies. And more we're seeing Web2 projects that they have a technological gap, they have an issue, and they're finding the solution in Web3. And not just on the obvious industries like fintech and payments, because those ones are the easy ones, right? But we're seeing these right now in some other industries like healthcare, right? We're seeing it as well in pharma, startups that are in pharma just reaching out. Gaming, loyalty, all sorts of different applications that a few years ago wouldn't be considered, or you wouldn't see people in the Web2 looking for these solutions in the on chain or doing a transition on chain.
Yeah, and it's almost like
exciting.
like I meant, what the cloud program back in 2012, and that a lot of what happened back then was those that were starting to build the hyperscalers, like, AWS and Google Cloud and Azure, just trying to turn people onto this and show them the benefit of actually building on cloud. And there was a lot of folks that they had to help turn the corner on that. And, I think we're at the stage now with blockchain where that's just the same thing, that if you show founders and tech builders the benefits, that they can actually, in the same way that building on cloud back in 2012 allowed them to get off the ground for $50K instead of $500K because you didn't need all these on-prem servers, that building on chain now allows you to supercharge the tech stack of your business, right? Yep. And there's a lot of different applications. Sometimes it's not right. Sometimes it is. And it's the right thing to do to help deliver your value proposition in a better, faster, and cheaper way,
I fully agree. I think that experimentation needs to keep happening. And we are learning every single day more and more about how to implement this technology into traditional Web2 interfaces, right? That is one of the key issues. Like we have been discussing this a lot, Pete, right? And for some reason, like a blockchain should be a technology that is at the back. Like a blockchain has not been designed to be just up there in front of everybody. It's like cloud, exactly. It's going to be a huge impact, but a lot of the users, they don't even know. They don't need to know, to be honest.
And I know you've been doing Solana Talent Hub Friday at Dogpatch Labs all throughout the summer as well. And I was able to stop by for one of them, and I need to get back for more. That has been successful. And you took the show on the road last week up to Belfast, didn't you?
That's it. Like, we have an extremely busy summer. Like the week before Belfast, we have more than 45 people coming, which is a number that if you asked me 2 years ago, would have been unheard of. Like, and there's more and more people, younger people, students, Web2 people that are like interested. And the decision of taking it to Belfast, well, Superteam Ireland is an island-wide initiative. This is not just for the Republic. It's something that we have been telling everybody. We accepted with open arms. And it was fantastic, actually, to share with that ecosystem. We have already people building in the Solana ecosystem. We have OG members like Kian Brennan that is leading right now, Sky in Solana. And we have the chance actually to sit down with Vishal. He heads all the blockchain group in Queen's University, and just was a really fantastic discussion about how we can just bring all the talent, all this new talent from Northern Ireland to look into Solana, for sure, but look into Web3 in general, right? Yep. I think the important piece is bringing people into the Web3 space, bringing people into blockchain, and then, look, the way I see it, there will be people from every single one of those chains. Like, I will do our best to just attract them into Solana, but most important is just creating that ecosystem first, right? And I think Queen's University is going to be a fantastic ally to make that happen, and I keep it growing. So there's going to be more of these events. Probably doing a satellite of Talent Hub in Belfast if we have the numbers, and we'll keep expanding across the island. That's the main idea. We need to decentralize a little bit from Dublin. Like, Ireland has this thing that is a double-edged sword, right? Because it's small enough, right, that everybody can travel to Dublin from everywhere, but at the same time, that creates that centralization piece, right? We have people coming from Donegal week on week, which is fantastic, right? But well, shouldn't be creating something maybe in Donegal we have the numbers. So that's probably next stage.
Absolutely. No, I love it. Just reaching out across the entire island, as you said, and that we are, was that Ian Brown in Belfast?
Yeah, Ian was there. And
Ian Mitchell, obviously, shout out to Ian Mitchell. He's been working on CryptoMondays with us.
Yeah, I should have mentioned Ian. As soon as we mentioned to him, look, we're going to be doing this in Belfast, he just jumped on it, contact the guys at Ormo Labs, and off you go.
Yep.
It was fantastic.
Yep. So absolutely. And we're going to go back up to Belfast on the 22nd of September. We've got a few folks from Dublin heading up for Crypto Mondays. So Belfast Tech Week is going on. I think it's kicking off that weekend before Monday, the 22nd. And we are doing an event called Building Our On-Chain Future. That's with Superteam Ireland and also with me, with Norio Ventures. I'll be sharing more a bit about that in a second. Like I said, bringing the show on the road up to Belfast. So that's Crypto Mondays Ireland. As we've said from the beginning, we did our first 3 events in Dublin, and then it was time to bring it up north. So looking forward to that. We also have our Payments Innovation Roundtable coming up. And this is a closed event. I'm excited to be doing this as we're trying to get payment firms and banks and anyone building in fintech and payments, just bring them up the curve a bit with regards to stablecoins and just get this roundtable discussion going, have this setting where people are comfortable learning in public. You're not really learning in public because it is a closed session, but co-learning with your industry colleagues. And so just to try to open people's eyes a bit with what's going on with stablecoin. So looking forward to doing that as well.
That will be pretty interesting. I'm really excited. But look, in general, we have been talking about creating this or hosting this for long, Pete. And seeing it happening now is exciting. I think it's the right time. It's the right moment. Stable coins are at a peak. Everybody wants to create a stable coin now. Do they need them? Probably not. But I think important is that people... I think it's important for people that are in that industry to understand what the impact of this technology is going to be for them. Because probably some of them know, probably some of them are just digesting what is to come. And let them know that if that's the route that they want to follow, there are options, there are alternatives, and that there are people in the ground that can help.
Definitely. And it's not shilling. That's the big thing. In that this is about opening people's eyes to innovations and innovations in their industry, and that this is something that you can choose to do. Now, if you take stablecoins, for example, stablecoins are a lot more about the importer in Dubai paying for coffee beans that are being shipped in mass from a farm in Kenya and being able to do so and with instant liquidity, instant settlement, and without all the cross-border hassles of getting from one local domestic currency into another. Correct. Right? In thinly traded FX markets where you have the fiat currencies that are on legacy rails. And it's a lot more about that type of transaction on the B2B level than it is someone walking into a cafe in Nairobi in Kenya and buying a cup of coffee. With all of these discussions, so much of this in the past in crypto, people take that word cryptocurrency and they think that we're talking about changing the world's currencies into other means. And that's not what it's about. I wish that word cryptocurrency was never created. I wish it was just crypto asset, because that's what these things are. And that you're looking at alternative forms of payment, being able to do so in a way that is better, faster, cheaper. And so always love to have conversations with folks about this. So looking forward to leading that roundtable with you. So speaking of doing new things, I do have some news to announce. So I am finally, after all these years, kicking off Norio Ventures Fund I.
Woohoo!
And
should I do the drums?
The drums, the gong, maybe, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm doing is that I'm backing unstoppable founders at the pre-seed and seed stage who are building on-chain finance, particularly in the areas of decentralized infrastructure, global capital mobility, and universal UX, all accelerated by AI. I've been doing a ton of work around the narrative and a ton of work around exactly what I'm doing and why. I started talking to my network about it, started telling them what I was doing, getting ideas, getting feedback. Obviously, I've worked with a ton of founders on raising their rounds, but when you're raising from limited partners that are investing in funds, it's a different kettle of fish completely. I'm talking with a lot of folks about their experience in doing that. This is a niche fund in a niche segment with a niche strategy. And this is something where I'm talking to others who have taken that same approach, raising their first time as a solo GP. And as I've done this in the past, working with others who are doing the fundraising, and I was the ops and structuring guy, And now I'm at that point where I'm like, listen, it's about damn time. I've been working in this space for 10 years. This is what I've been driving towards. Just do it, right? Just get out there and do it. And if I fall on my face flat, who cares? At least I gave it a shot.
No, Pete, I'm so glad to hear this, because you say I was going to ask you why it took you so long, actually.
The first 5 years of me in this space, those were the hustle years. And that was me trying to figure this space out and get to know founders and work closely with founders and get myself onto advisory boards and boards of directors and all of that. And then Techstars came along. And Techstars was about me doing two things. One, getting my reps with 38 investments, reviewing 2,500 applications, doing over 1,000 founder calls, right? And the second thing was about building the network and building those relationships with mentors, with investors, but most importantly, with the founders, and being able to truly understand what an unstoppable founder looks like. And this culminated in our 2025 cohort where we said, we're not doing 12 investments this year. We're doing 6. We're doing 6 high conviction bets only. And that's what's been built into my own patterns and my own processes. And it feels right. It's high conviction. And it's not me spraying and praying. It's saying these are founders that I believe in that will build the next wave of moving finance on chain.
I think that's probably a good approach, because you don't want to be known in the industry, right? As an investor, as someone that is placing money, disappearing, then coming back, extracting value, and off you go. And the knowledge that you have, Pete, will be invaluable for a lot of these companies opening doors. What you call smart money, right? That's exactly what you want.
Yep.
And that's the bet. Look, I'm extremely excited. I'm really happy. I'm really glad for you. I believe that Irish ecosystem are going to welcome this with open arms and look for the grassroots. This is going to be so important. This could be one of the cornerstones that will allow us just to build a proper startup ecosystem in the Web3 space in Ireland.
Definitely. And, I've been referring to what you've done, Alejandro, when I speak with people about creating investment opportunities where they may not otherwise be. In that where you find a founder building an AI who may not have thought about building on chain, and that where they look at that, when you kind of prompt them and they say, wait a second, if we actually built this into our stack, this would allow us to do X, Y, and Z a whole lot better. And things like micropayments in AI and agentic payments in general, right? All that type of stuff. So being able to do a lot of this stuff that you and I have been working on together has allowed me to create this little extra thing that is interesting. And on that note, people said, Pete, what are you going to call your new fund? I said, you know what? I created Norio Ventures back in 2016 with purpose. Norio is Japanese for man of principle. Okay. Norio is also an anagram of the word Orion. Orion is the hunter. I've always been a hunter for unstoppable founders, for new deals, new ideas, new things that are worth pursuing. Hunter is also a family name going back to the 13th century in Scotland. It means a lot to me. I could have come up with another name. Someone said, Pete, just call it On-Chain Ventures. I said, no.
Somebody suggested Pete Stars.
Yeah, Pete Stars. Yeah, absolutely. Could have done that as well. But, it's I'm sticking with it. And I'm excited, as you can tell.
I think, look, with your experience and what you have done actually with Techstars before that, there will be a lot of people interested. I have no doubt about it.
I hope so.
I'm really excited. I'm extremely excited about the launch of Norio Ventures and having out there. I believe it's going to be terrific for the ecosystem, for you personally. So well done, sir. Congratulations.
Thank you. Me and AI, GPT has been my best friend in this so far. So we have to thank GPT as well for getting things to this stage. So given the summer hiatus, and given that so much has happened over the past few months, I just wanted to do a quick rewind on a few of these things. These are important topics for what you're building through Superteam, but also with what I'm going to be investing in through Norio Ventures Fund I. So, and it's no surprise that these are the topics that you and I speak about regularly anyway, because this is the lifeblood of why I'm doing this to begin with. In that we had the huge event over the summer with the passing of the Genius Act. And that is fueling stablecoin mainstreaming as a regulatory framework for stablecoins. So think about things like full reserve backing, mandatory audits, state, federal permitting. It's basically mainstreaming digital dollars with a great foundation of regulation behind it. McKinsey have predicted that 2 trillion will be driven into stablecoins. So that's $2 trillion in stablecoin value predicted by 2028. And that also Europe is going a bit of its own cautious route. Mika has a stablecoin framework. It's a bit unwieldy, right? I don't think we're going to be seeing any depth of liquidity in Euro stablecoins anytime soon. Okay. And that will be a topic of conversation for our Payments Innovation Roundtable. We're talking mostly to those who are operating in Euro and how do we actually enable firms to take advantage of the stablecoin infrastructure when this is operating primarily in USD. There's the stablecoin sandwich. I won't get into that for now, but you know what I'm talking about there.
It would be really interesting to see how it develops in Europe, right? Because now you're seeing every single big economy in the world pushing that direction. I don't see the appetite in here. There's a lot of discussion still about CBDCs in Europe, like a digital euro like minted directly by the European Union, etc., which is personally I don't think is the right approach for this. We know that it's not. But
it's not.
At the same time, I believe that the European Union has or is a bit afraid of losing some sort of dominance from the currency perspective, because if the dominance goes straight into the USD, what's going to happen with the euro?
Yep. Yeah, I've had some conversations about this with people who although I cannot get into, right? So I'm right there with you. A digital euro is not the answer. It was at least encouraging to hear that there was talk of that being on a public blockchain, but their original plans for the digital euro had nothing to do with blockchain. It was a closed system. Okay. Yep. And when you have a closed system that's issuing digital instruments, digital dollars, digital securities, they can't be reused elsewhere. And that is part of the global capital mobility part of my investment thesis, is that we need these assets to be able to move around the world into institutions' hands, into individual hands in ways that bring them surprise, delight, and joy from the user experience. And with a closed loop system, you're not going to get that. And it was Tony McLaughlin, who is the founder and CEO of Ubix. And he is a stablecoin maximalist. And he spoke about this on LinkedIn and talking about the difference between stablecoins and tokenized deposits and CBDCs. Now, I worked on something a few years ago with an early player in the stablecoin space. And they were responding to a tender from the Treasury in the UK, in England. And it was on CBDCs. And they said, how do we do this? And they said, there's two models. There's one, the central bank itself can issue a digital currency. But what that brings with it is the need to have a consumer service attached to that. You have people worried about that a transaction didn't complete correctly. Can a central bank really support that? No. So the alternative is that you create the digital currency as a framework, but then you let the commercial banks deliver that. And you let the commercial banks issue their digital currencies in that local fiat currency. So you have HSBC, you have NatWest, you have Barclays, whatever in the UK that are all issuing digital pounds, and they're all fungible against each other in the same way that if you pick up a euro coin and you flip it over and you see that that coin was actually minted in Greece, and then I've got in my pocket another one that was minted in Ireland, it doesn't make a difference. They're totally fungible. Yeah. And so and that was the model that was being proposed. This was 5 years ago. And then when I saw the whole tokenized deposits model coming out of JP Morgan, it looks the same. And that the tokenized deposits model is that you have a bank that takes a part of its balance sheet and says, we're going to issue a stablecoin, basically backed by the bank's balance sheet. Yeah. And that's all this is. Now, JP Morgan are doing this initially with JPMD, but it's a bit of a closed loop system, only available to their customers, but at least it's baby steps in the right direction with this stuff.
I think we're heading there. And Genius Act was kind of the trigger for people to put forward the plans that they have, because all of these guys have plans. Like, it's not possible that Unius Act is passed and a week after everybody is unveiling stable coins, layer ones for payments, etc., etc. Like, I have been working on this for a long time, right?
Yeah.
What I don't like it, but I think it's part of the marketing component, is the hype that is coming out of it. Everybody now is launching a layer one. Everybody's launching again a stable coin. For what purpose? I have no idea, but they are all in there. What can happen is that we're getting distracted from what is important, right? And it's the application and the efficiencies that the technology will bring to a lot of the players and consumers, right? Because it's not just the players, it's the consumers as well.
Absolutely. You know, and I think we're living in a world right now, at least for those in the, you know, crypto native and crypto fluent, if not crypto curious, where, you know, Tether and USDC, the two biggest stablecoins, can cohabitate in my wallet together. And I can use them for different things. And I kind of, when, you know, you have a look at your app, it adds it all up together for you anyway and saying, this is your cash, right? So, but when we're looking at 10, 20, 30, 40, that's where things start to get a bit unwieldy. So yeah, and you kind of see this in that, like Stripe's Tempo blockchain that they just announced last week. And, you know, some very notable names that are working on this. It's that they're talking about it being credibly neutral, okay? And that they want developers to build on that. Now, what does Stripe get from that? They get a benefit of the transaction fees that are coming through the chain, right? Rather than having that accrue to Circle or to Tether or to Athena. Correct. You know, or to somebody else, right?
Look, and it's good to see that the business model for stablecoins is changing, right? Because we always knew that the business model of leveraging like rates, that's not sustainable. That's sustainable now because like interest rates are high, but realistically, what happens when interest go low? Like, we knew that was not sustainable to see. So now, when you
saw that today, there was something. It was in CNBC. Oh, was it CNBC? Wherever it was, hey, there's a 7 trillion cash pile that's in money market funds right now. That is, if the Fed drops rates to, you know, 4.25% or even 4% or whatever it is, that 7 trillion will all be ushered into Bitcoin. I'm like, that's not going to happen. You may see some of it, right? But it was like, okay, people want to risk on. But I don't think your average institution or individual that is holding shares of a money market fund will jump and push that into Bitcoin as a risk-on asset, right?
I doubt it.
No, not going to happen. But listen, the stablecoins in general, moving towards 300 billion as an asset class, right? With Tether and USDC dominating that. But there are more and more creeping up. Like I think Athena is now the third ranked stablecoin. So obviously what goes hand in hand, Alejandro, with tokenized cash or tokenized dollars is tokenized securities. And we saw a ton of action in that over the summer. And it was particularly around Project Crypto, which was SEC Chair Jenkins was speaking about, where he saw things going with the tokenization of financial markets. And basically the whole speech that he did and the transcript of that was like a hit list, a laundry list of everything that we had been looking for and everything that we wanted to open up when it comes to super apps and being able to integrate with crypto, being able to integrate with tokenized securities and stablecoins, and making sure that you have the right regulatory framework around this, because you're bringing together what are these regulatory permissions across payments, across derivatives, across securities, and money transmission and things like that have all these different regulatory frameworks right now. Don't want firms that are building this space to have to go get 10, 20, 30, 50 different regulatory licenses here. So there's some good progress happening there on the regulatory front. What we also saw was the market, and this is on rwa.xyz, and I'll put that up in the show notes as well, that the tokenized security market or real world assets on chain is approaching 30 billion right now. Again, still small number. When you combine it with stablecoins, it's above 300 billion, but let's keep the two separate. But the tokenized security market is expected as well to move up into the 1 to 5 trillion range by the year 2030. Okay. And little hints of what's going on with Nasdaq. Just yesterday announced that they've proposed to the SEC that they want to enable tokenized securities to be traded on Nasdaq. Now, this won't be fully native digital issuance of securities on chain that are then issued by a CSD and then trading on Nasdaq. This will be basically a settlement option. You're trading on Nasdaq, but then you have the option to hold the tokenized form in your wallet or in an institutional wallet rather than holding it in street name through a brokerage account or something like that.
So like they're announcing this for 2026, which is really interesting. It's quite soon. Like I think it's early 2026, right?
Yep, it is. Going alongside that, we had Galaxy Digital. They're already tokenizing their own common stock via Superstate on Solana. So giving that 24/7 trading and real share rights to shareholders rather than what we're seeing happening, which are these wrappers where you have a SPV in Liechtenstein, for example, that is created to hold shares of NVIDIA that then trade on a tokenized exchange. Again, baby steps going in the right direction are these SPV related tokenized securities. But what we're looking for is truly native digital issuance. And that's what Galaxy Digital have done. They're a publicly traded company. They're saying, we're going to take a tranche of our shares and we're going to issue them digitally so that they can trade on Superstate. So that was another interesting development there.
That was a fantastic one, actually, because it's saying like, look, it is possible. It's not just about the wrappers that you say. Now we can have these assets that are like on chain. They have been digitally created for this purpose only, 24/7 at a completely more efficient manner, right, for capital markets.
Definitely. And this is obviously one of the, these are great steps forward, but there's a ton of infrastructure still to build. We built so much great infrastructure in crypto, but in order for institutional traders, for financial services firms, for day traders, for everybody that's trading the traditional financial markets, for them to be able to have all the same tools and utilities and expectations when they have the on-chain experience, ton to build. And that's why I'm investing in this space. So good place to wrap. Thank you, Alejandro. It was great to step through all of this with you, and I'll be seeing you next week.
Thank you very much, Pete. Pleasure as always. Really looking forward to episode 300, live from somewhere around Dublin, I assume.
Yep.
And, great news about Norio Ventures. So looking forward to catching up next week.
Wonderful. Thanks, Alejandro.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That does it for this week, folks. You can learn more about the topics we covered in the show notes on our website, MoneyNeverSleeps.ie. Thanks to Alejandro Gutierrez for the awesome insights he shared in co-hosting this episode with me. If you like what you heard, please leave us a rating and or review on Spotify, Apple, or on MoneyNeverSleeps.ie/rate. Thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for mixing and editing this episode. Conan is an excellent media man to work with on your own podcast. As for me, I'm general partner of Norio Ventures, an early-stage venture capital fund backing unstoppable founders building on-chain finance. There are plenty of links in the show notes on MoneyNeverSleeps.ie on how to get in touch, so don't hesitate to reach out. Finally, till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!
Money never sleeps, pal.